What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this Glycine Airman. This was sent in by my buddy Tony, and it currently does not run. And when Tony asked me to take a look at it, I didn't hesitate. Not only did I want to help Tony out and get his watch running, but I'm also a fan of the Glycine Airman. So I really love these little watches. I think they're really cool. So it's a pleasure to get to work on one. As you can see here, the time setting function does work, and the date did change over at 12 o'clock midnight. But you'll see here when I pop the crown back in, the watch does not start running. And no matter how many times I wind this thing up, it will not start. I've even tried shaking it up, and I cannot get the watch to run whatsoever. So we are going to take the case back off and see if we can find out what's causing the issue and causing this watch not to run. So to open the case back up, you do need a special tool to get this style case back off. And I even had to modify mine with a Dremel to make it big enough to fit over the case back. But with some persuasion, I was able to get it to work and get the case back loose. I'm also using a plastic bag to prevent the case back from getting scratched up. But once it's broke loose, I can just finish unthreading it by hand here, and then we can pop the case back off. And there's a look at the movement. This is the SW330-2, and it's based on the ETA 2892. And Glycine does put a custom rotor on here as well with that prop airplane. But I'm going to use some air here to try and impulse the balance and see if I can get it running. You'll see there, it did run for a second, and then it kind of stops rather abruptly. Just like that, the balance kind of stops. So we'll flip it over here to the dial side, and you can see that the seconds hand did actually move. It was up there by the 12 o'clock, so it did move a little bit, but not as much as I'd expect it to for how much the balance moved back and forth. So I'm just going to try it again here, give it some more air, see if I can get that balance to, kick up and start running. Flipping it back over to the dial side. This time you can see the seconds hand didn't move at all, so something definitely going on with this watch. One of my first suspicions was that maybe it's not winding up, and that's causing the mainspring to not have any power. But as you can see here, if you look at that little gear, it turns as I move the rotor back and forth. So the automatic winding does work. And I'll zoom back in here again. You can see that same gear moving as I wind the crown. So both the automatic and manual wind do work. So we're just going to go deeper and remove the rotor. You can see there are 3 screws here that are used to remove the rotor. And if you look at them closely, you can see that they're a different color from the other screws. And then there's also a little case clamp here that we'll need to remove and get out the way as well. So I'm going to start by removing that case clamp. That just holds the movement to the movement spacer and takes up tolerance in the case so everything's nice and tight. So we're just going to go ahead and set the screw aside and the little clamp here. We'll set that aside as well. Now we can remove the screws that hold down the automatic winding bridge. So we'll remove all 3 of these screws. And I'll set those aside. And that one kind of jumped off on me. Grab it, and now we can remove the last one. So we'll get that removed. And now we can go ahead and remove the rotor. Trying to grab it with my tweezers here, but it doesn't want to come up quite yet. It is on 2 little dowel pins, like locator pins. So just going to use my flathead screwdriver to kind of pry up on it. And once I've done that, I can just use my tweezers to finish removing it. And this little gear did come off. It does go inside the rotor, but it interacts with this jewel here. So I'm just going to set it there for now. And I'll install it back into the rotor before I put it on. Looking a little closer here, one of my other suspicions was that maybe the balance hack was not where it should be. But as you can see, that little balance hack is located right where it should be. So that's not causing the issue either. And then my next suspicion was maybe the watch has a broken mainspring. And, with that, it wouldn't have any power. So it wouldn't matter if the winding works or not if the mainspring was broken. So I'm just using my screwdriver to hold back the click spring there, and I can feel the watch unwinding through the crown in my fingers here. So the watch doesn't have a broken mainspring because I can feel that it has plenty of power left in there. So I'm just going to try impulsing the balance here now that I can get a better look at it. And if you look closely at the escape wheel, you can see that it's not turning. It's kind of just juddering back and forth. So you can see there, it's not actually spinning at all. It's just kind of staggering back and forth. So something definitely going on with the escapement of this watch. So we're going to go ahead and remove the balance so we can get a better look at it and look at the pallet fork and the escape wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the screw for the balance bridge. And now I can remove the balance. Same thing with the rotor. Just going to use a flathead screwdriver to pry underneath there. And now I can remove the bridge with my tweezers. Just be real careful here. It is a delicate piece. So I'll set that aside. And now we can remove the pallet fork bridge and its screw. So go ahead and get that unthreaded. Set its little screw aside. And now I can remove the pallet fork bridge. So just trying to be pretty delicate here. And with that, I can remove the pallet fork itself. And nothing immediately sticks out to me. So I'm going to check here and make sure that power is making its way from the mainspring barrel all the way to the escape wheel. And you can see when I turn the mainspring barrel a tiny bit, all the other wheels in the train of wheels move, and they kind of progressively move faster and faster all the way down to that escape wheel that's kind of whizzing by there. Now, as I do this, I am feeling a little bit of resistance. So I was kind of wondering what was causing that. And then as I zoomed in closer here, I can see that the balance hack was actually touching the mainspring barrel. So that must have come dislodged somewhere along the way as I was using air to impulse the balance, and that caused that balance hack to start touching the mainspring barrel. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it and set it aside for now. And that's what I thought might have been causing the issue, but on the balance side at first. So with that out of the way, I can go ahead and move the mainspring barrel again. And as I do it this time, everything's moving much freer. So that tells me that everything in the trainer wheels from the mainspring barrel all the way down to the escape wheel is fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall that balance hack there. So I'm just making sure that that little lever is in that groove of the sliding clutch. Hopefully you guys can see that. So there's a groove in the sliding clutch that interacts with that balance hack. So I'll leave the balance hack back in place where it should be. Like I said, that was never the issue. So we're going to go ahead and reassemble this watch. And like I said, everything from the mainspring barrel all the way down to the escape wheel is working as it should. So I'm just going to put the pallet fork back in, and now I can reinstall the pallet fork bridge and gently set it onto its little dowel pins. Just make sure it's fully seated here. And I can also move the pallet fork back and forth gently to make sure that it's in both the upper and lower joule settings. So it's moving freely, so it feels good there. Now I can reinstall the screw for the pallet fork bridge. So we'll go ahead and get this threaded down. And I'll make sure that's nice and snug. Now I can go ahead and put some wind into the mainspring. So I'm just going to use the manual wind here with the crown and put some wind into the mainspring, and I'm going to test the pallet fork. So I can use my screwdriver to push it from side to side here, and it should be jumping, very fast from side to side. You can see there, sometimes it does want to jump like it did just there, but most of the time I have to actually push the pallet fork all the way over to the other side. So this doesn't feel quite right, but it does want to jump sometimes. But I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the balance here, and we'll see if we can get it to run. So just being very careful with the balance. Get it lined up on its little dowel pins there. And be very careful. Just taking my time here, trying to get it lined up with everything. And once it's lined up, it does kind of want to fall right into place. So that's kind of how you know you have it in the right spot. And now I can go ahead and reinstall the balance bridge screw. Normally I would expect the balance to be running here, but because this watch wasn't running before, it's not a surprise it's not running now. But I'm going to go ahead and impulse the balance with some air here, and you can see that the escape wheel is actually moving. So flipping it over to the dial side, the watch is actually running here, but something's not quite right. You can see that the seconds hand starts juddering back and forth and then stops. So something still, not quite right with this watch, and giving it more air there, and I'll turn it back over to the dial side. Here you can see that seconds hand just juddering back and forth. It's not moving at all. And I'll try one more time here. And I did get the seconds hand to run for a little bit longer. And then you can see it just kind of starts that juddering again and then stops. I took everything back apart and took a closer look at this pallet fork and still couldn't really tell, but had a suspicion that the pivot might be broken. So I ordered up another one. It took about a week to get here. I ordered this on eBay. So got a new pallet fork, and I'm pretty sure that this should fix the issue. So I'm going to go ahead and install a new pallet fork. So now we can just dump this one out of the little bubble pack it comes in and get ready to install the pallet fork into the movement. And I'll zoom in here so you guys can see what's going on. So get the pallet fork into that bottom jewel there, and then I'll give it some wiggles back and forth to make sure it's all the way in its setting there. And now I can reinstall the pallet fork bridge. So again, just get this lined up on those two little guide pins, just like that. And again, I can, wiggle the pallet fork back and forth and make sure that it's in both of the jewel settings. And then once I know it's in both the jewel settings, I can go ahead and screw down the pallet fork bridge. So we'll just get this snugged up, just like that. And now this time I can put some wind into the movement and we can check our new pallet fork. So I'll zoom back in here and I'll use my screwdriver to give it a little nudge. And it jumped right over. Give it a nudge back and see how quick it jumps over. That's how it should feel. So the new pallet fork is feeling much better than the old one. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to fix the issue with this watch. So I'm super happy about that. Now I can reinstall the balance here. Again, just being careful to not damage anything here. Get it lined up. And I'm just going to give it a little nudge with the tweezers. And look at that. It started right up. That is such a good feeling when the watch kicks up like that. So super excited about that. Really happy. So with that, I can go ahead and reinstall the balance bridge screw. So we'll go ahead and get that threaded down. And once that's tight, the amplitude should kick up even higher than this. So very happy with that. Now I can go ahead and reinstall that gear that came out of the automatic winding rotor and the bridge here. So get that installed in. There is a short side and a long side. It will only fit in between that other gear with the short side, so you can't put it in backwards or anything. I can just pop the rotor back in here and make sure that our automatic winding is working. So I'll just test that, make sure that little gear moves as I rotate the rotor both directions. And once I confirm that our automatic winding is working, I can go ahead and finish screwing down the bridge. So we'll go ahead and get all three of our screws installed here. Now we can do the other two on this side. So we'll get both of those installed and thread those down. Now we can get our final screw installed here. Thread that guy down. Make sure they're both snug. And I can reinstall that case clamp there. And its screw. So go ahead and thread this down as well. Make sure it's nice and snug. And with that, I can go ahead and re-lubricate the case back gasket. This watch does have 100 meters of water resistance, so you do want to keep that intact. So some silicone grease will prolong the life of this gasket. So we'll get that installed. And now I can thread this on by hand and just make sure it's snug for now, and I'll tighten it up with my tool later. Wiping away some excess grease here on the case back, and we'll flip it over. And that is such a good sight to see this watch running. Super happy that I could get this fixed for Tony. Let's go ahead and check the functions just to make sure everything's right. So it does hack, and the seconds hand does stop, and the time setting function does work. So it's a little worried about that because I did have the balance hack out and everything. So nice to see that the balance does hack like it should. Time setting function works. Pushing the crown back in, the seconds hand starts right back up. So that all feels good. I am just going to check the quick set date as well, just to make sure all the functions are working. So that all feels good. Push the crown back in there. And like I said, I'm super excited that this watch only needed a pallet fork. So very happy we could get this fixed for Tony. I'm going to go ahead and set the time to 10 and 2. And then push the crown back in. And it starts running right back like it should. Not quite done yet. I am going to throw this watch on the time grapher just to confirm that it's running right and take a look at the numbers. I want to check the amplitude and all that stuff. So I'm going to go get my time grapher and we'll throw this thing on there and see how it's running. So I'll go ahead and set the watch into the time grapher here. And we'll let it start running. And immediately you can see that there's a nice tight line on the time grapher and it's going straight across. So that's exactly what you'd want to see. The watch is running very good here at -6 seconds, and the amplitude is very nice at 259. But after letting it sit and settle in for a while, the watch settled in at -5 seconds a day, and the amplitude went up to 268. So super happy with that. -5 seconds plus 5 seconds is within cost spec, so I'm not going to adjust it. I'm going to leave it just like it is. So this watch is running great. Thank you guys for watching the video. Super excited to get this watch back on Tony's wrist. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.